think I have about 7 or 8 minutes, I think.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm going to try to be really good. Can you go ding when it's about 6 minutes in so I know to wrap myself up? Because I'll get carried away. She's a blind lady.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Help a sister out. Okay, so I love the Samaritan woman story, and we all know that, and I identify with it a lot, and I'm sure a lot of us can. And I think evangelical Christians, y'all, never mind, my Caucasian padres may or may not appreciate my stance on evangelical Christians, but that's okay today, because I stand in the word of the Lord, and I stand with His power and His strength, and so I'm good with that today. Right, I'm good with that today. But I think the evangelical Christians have always come to that story about the Samaritan woman. We're going to call her Sam because I want to give her a name because, she's more than the Samaritan woman. She has a name. She has an identity. And because Jesus went to meet with her at the well.
Amen.
And I think at that time He exposed His true humanity to us. I don't believe, as the evangelical Christians have said, that it is the reconciliation of sin. I believe it was Jesus exposing His humanity as a Jew, as a person, into a woman who was shunned from her mere birth of being a Samaritan, judged by the color of her skin, her culture, her economic status, her behaviors, her hole in her soul that led her to be married 5 times.
Yeah.
Y'all, 5 times, and to be living in sin with a man seeking to fill the hole in her soul of love. How many of you have had a hole in your soul?
Wow.
How many of you have a hole in your soul? How many of you have said, addiction,
Yes.
loneliness,
Yes.
unemployment, poverty,
Yeah.
your skin color,
Yeah.
right? Socioeconomic privilege, it's a thing, right? Systemic oppression, it's a thing. Y'all, it's a thing. And as a person who appears to be Caucasian, although I curl myself pink, y'all, I'm actually Native American registered on the rolls, but I have albino characteristics, and the government makes me carry a little card to prove my pedigree because I'm Native American, and they're not real crazy about that, and that's okay today.
Yeah.
That's okay today, because I was judged by this color of my skin, but I look like I'm Caucasian, which gives me privilege.
Wow.
Right? And I have to acknowledge that. I have to acknowledge that. So Jesus and the lady at the Samaritan, like I said, we're going to call her Sam. This is what I want to say. Instead of saying it's a story of the reconciliation of sin, He brought her to confess her sin. How about it being an exchange of, I see you, I see your hole in your soul, and I want to take that and exchange it for living water. Y'all, can I exchange that? Why do we not talk about it like that?
Wow.
Right? And so let me tell you about Jesus and His exchange of living water for the hole in my soul. So, so what am I down to? 5 minutes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Trying to stay on track, y'all. I want to get y'all too far behind. So I grew up in foster care. I grew up in poverty. My mom was in an insane asylum when she gave birth to me. I grew up in foster care, so I was always judged. I went to 21 schools by the time I hit 7th grade. I was illiterate the last time I went to school. I knew my ABCs, I knew my 1, 2, 3s, and I knew how to write my name, but I could not read or write. I was so tired. I'd been sexually abused. I was sold by my own mom at 8 years old for housing to a guy that had a thing for pubescent little girls. I need you to know that you don't go back and be an 8-year-old after that. I had already been sexually abused. I had already grew up in poverty. We had already been homeless my whole life. I had already been in and out of foster care, removed from my mom's home at 3 years old with 3 broken bones. Right? I had a hole in my soul. At 9 years old, I was self-harm. By 11 years old, I was taking pills to make the pain go away. I had a hole in my soul. At 15, living in an abandoned building because I thought being on my own was better than the justice system because they did not give me justice. Right? I ended up homeless in an abandoned building where a guy befriended me. I had been digging in trash cans. Right? He befriended me and gave me a job, and he sold me for $2,500 to a dude that owned a bunch of strip clubs where they traveled me around Coffeyville, Kansas, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and Tulsa, Oklahoma, and sold me to men who had paid for me in VIP rooms as a minor, broken, a hole in my soul. In that, I became a crack cocaine addict. Back then, it was freebasing because I ain't young, y'all. I ain't young, right? We didn't call it crack. We didn't have the crack epidemic. And we surely didn't have the grace and mercy for the heroin epidemic for the white privileged people that it's bleeded off into now, back in the crack epidemic, right? So let's talk about that, because it hit poor white folks and it hit the African American community, so nobody cared. The heroin epidemic has trickled off into the privileged white Caucasian suburbia area, and so therefore we pour money into it because we act like we care, right? I saw these things in my journey of 103 arrests and 7 prison stints. I ended up in Kansas City, Missouri as a teenager, broken, hooked up with a pimp, bought and sold. I lived on Independence Avenue selling my body for crack cocaine, being bought and sold thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of times. Invisible to the world around me, shunned by the community around me, disregarded by the systems of oppression. Told I was unrehabilitatable until I prayed at the church steps for death. I prayed and I prayed for death to find me. And I had gone to a church a few times where I could eat, and they would say if you would come to the preaching and learn, you would burn in hell, turn for your ways. You're going to burn in hell, turn for your ways. And then you get a sandwich. Okay, so I knew I was jacked up. I was at a food pantry with no shoes. I was living in a street corner selling my body for crack cocaine, sneaking into people's backyards using water spigots to take a shower. I knew I was jacked up. I didn't need anybody to reaffirm that. Nobody met me at the well. Nobody saw me. Nobody came to exchange hope for my pain. And nobody showed me what to do different. As I prayed for death, a truck pulled over, and he picked me up and he paid for me. And as we parked by the railroad tracks off of Troost, and he beat me for hours. And then he pulled a gun and he held it to my temple as he pulled my hair and held me up to my knees because I was too weak to stand on my knees alone. And he told me to give him a reason to live. And all I could think was, it's finally over. God must exist, and he heard my prayers. It seemed like an eternity, and I waited and waited as he told me how unworthy I was to breathe the same air as him. And then I peeped. What's going on? What's taking so long? And then I realized that I was just making him angry because I wasn't scared. He thrived on the fear. As he attempted to violate me all over again, all the rage for every time that my friends were murdered, disregarded by society, nobody looked for, nobody cared. Nobody cried out their names, and for many of them, nobody even claimed their bodies. Right? Nobody cared. Disposable people by society. Right? So as I thought about all the violent justice things I learned from my mom early on, if you don't fight back, it won't hurt as bad, and it won't last as long. This was the first time in my entire life I fought back. Right? I fought back, I got the gun, and I had him get on his knees, and I told him to give me a reason to let him live. And God interceded for me that day, which began my journey. God interceded for me that day. He kept me from taking that man's life. So if you haven't been through the things that I have been through, we can thank God all the time for the things God brought us through, but do we thank Him for the things that He kept us from? You thank Him for the things that He kept us from. We got to thank Him for the things He brings us through, but you got to thank Him for the things He kept us from. When I pulled the trigger, my intentions were to take the man's life, and God moved my hand. As he sobbed and told me about his wife and family, I left him there. And I knew that if I could find a way out, I would kill somebody. I had the capacity to kill. And I didn't want to be a monster. And that started my journey out. God interceded in my life. The very church I prayed, I ended up a couple of years into my sober journey after 21 years of being bought and sold. I got invited to a church. I went. It was the same church, oddly enough, that I had prayed for death, where I gave my life to Jesus Christ. A couple years into that, I had this really interesting thing. I had some complications with a pregnancy, and in 3 days I was left totally blind. I had a choice of medication for the life of my unborn child, but it would, I was pregnant, and so the medication would have saved my eyesight, but it would have killed my unborn child. And I chose my baby. When my baby was 5 weeks old, I had to have both my eyes medically removed. And so I tell people all the time, my blindness is my blessing.
Amen.
My blindness became what taught me to see. My blindness became where I grew in faith.
Yeah.
I had to trust everything into God. And that's what faith is all about, believing in what we can't see, feel, or touch, right? And so as I grew in my faith and I grew in my journey, God made aware all of the times that I was incarcerated in a homeless suite down at Jurassic Park. And because I was white, the police would tell me to step out and they would take my brown and black-skinned brothers and sisters to jail. That's when God brought to my attention that with my place of privilege, I could use this because not only did I witness it with my eyes, I experienced it with my brothers and sisters. I saw the disparity in sentencing when I would go to court, and I would get let go on an OR bond, and my friends with the same charges would stay, right? And so I have to acknowledge the injustice for all of us. So today, that is my plight. I'm the